high school sweethearts. A concept as quaint and old-fashioned as a white picket fence. An effervescent relationship known far more for its excitement than its staying power. But what happens when two of these sweethearts decide to give it the old college try and get married? And what if they turn heartbreak into an opportunity to change the lives of countless people? I am your host, Trevor White, and this is Marriage Stories. Welcome. This week on Marriage Stories, we are lucky to be joined by Josh and Heather Avis. Josh and Heather, thank you so much for being with us this week.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Trevor.
Yeah. So as we always do here, we'd like to hear you introduce your partner. So who wants to get started and introduce?
Oh, ladies first.
Oh gosh, I wanted to do it first.
I'll go first.
Chivalry is not dead.
Yeah. Okay, this is Heather Avis, formerly known as Heather Hutchcroft before we got married. Heather is, I would say, a mother first and a creative. She's an author. She has written 4 books. One is a New York Times bestseller. She's a podcaster. She's an advocate. She is an amazing partner. She's an amazing visionary. And I would say her heart beats for changing and shifting narratives around how we see those who are othered in our world. Mm-hmm. And she uses her talent to do that.
Wonderful. And where's Heather from?
Well, she grew up in local mountains here in Southern California, and now we live in Midlands.
Very cool. Very cool. And outside of obviously those wonderful, traits you described, what are some of her other interests? What does she get excited about?
That's right. It's a marriage podcast. So Heather, let's see what gets her excited. A good deal. And what that means is she is a yard sale hunter. Through and through. And so she is always hunting for a good find, a good deal. Mm-hmm. And then all the family reaps the benefits for that. So
nice.
She is a gatherer. She loves to gather people. I think the one thing that really fills her cup is just being in community and loving on her community and the community loving on her. And I think she thrives when she's in the presence of her family, of her kids, and watching them grow and stumble and thrive. And did I miss anything?
So what's a yard sale find that really stands out? That something that she got that made a big difference.
Big difference. Our home. Yeah, so short story, she was out hunting on a Saturday and there was a yard sale at our home.
Right.
And she happened to know the person, and the person said, "We're moving." And she said, "Oh, are you selling your house?" And she said, "I am." And we bought it without a realtor, and here we are.
If it's in the yard, it's for sale, right? The house was there.
You didn't get a yard sale price. We paid full price for the house, but I did find it at a yard sale, technically.
That's wow. Wonderful. And so, Josh, when you first met Heather, what drew you to her?
Her face first.
Oh my gosh.
We were young. So I was 15, right? And
I think you were 16, maybe.
16. I was 16 and she was 13. And I got to know her older sister at school, and we were friends. Her older sister and I were friends and still are. And I just remember one day at her house, passing her room, and we had kind of seen each other, but then she started to hang out with us as a group, and I just was immediately attracted to her. So I would say her cuteness and her countenance too.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So Heather, is this a fitting introduction to you? Is there anything you'd add for context?
I feel like that was great. Yeah. Right on.
Wonderful.
Wait, one more thing. She's an amazing chef. She's an amazing chef. In her,
you want to call me a chef? I can make a meal.
Okay, her culinary magic really does help with the gatherings, and it actually attracts a lot of people to our home. And
does she have a signature dish?
That's a good question. I don't think I do.
I feel like that salmon is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I don't think I have a signature dish.
She's also a mixologist. I could keep going. You shouldn't have asked all these questions.
Well, this is the deal.
So yes, I wish I was a mixologist. I do. I make a really, really good margarita.
Okay.
And a really good old fashioned. I have my own little twist to both of them. I will own that.
Wonderful. All right, Heather, your turn. Introduce us to Josh.
Joshua Douglas Avis grew up in the local mountains in Crestline, California, same city as me.
Nice.
He is the youngest of two boys and is a really good son. Josh is somebody who is very aware. He has incredible self-awareness and is not afraid to ask hard questions of himself, of others. He is a learner. So he's good at learning. He's good at saying even like, this is hard for me. I don't want to, but I should do this, or it would be a good idea. He doesn't say should very often. We don't should around here. But he's big on, he's good at knowing that there's room for growth and then stepping towards that growth. And that makes him a really good son. And he loves his parents very much. And then he is an incredible father. We've got 3 kids, and he is and has always been hands-on. We don't, I would say, we don't really fall within like stereotypical gender roles in how we do our family. And he's always been quick to step up and be present and available and in all the ways needed. He's an advocate for our kiddos. We have 2 kids with Down syndrome. We have a daughter who is African-American and Guatemalan, and he stands up for each of them and shouts their worth and is very quick to be the dad to be what they need from him in the moment. He's an artist and a creative, and very much so. He's totally an artist and a creative. He will try his hand at sports, but it's not his strength. He just great. It's great. Besides, not even
what's his medium for art that he most prefers?
Graphic design. So he has a degree in graphic design, and he's an incredible graphic designer. He can draw too. He's great at drawing, and he is a guy who loves to be around people. Loves to have people in our home, and loves to go and out with people and all of that. But he also loves a good time of solitude,
contemplative space. Sorry, I'm not allowed to talk.
He loves some solitude, contemplative spaces. He is a contemplative guy.
What do you notice that gets Josh most fired up? What is he most passionate about?
It has been different, just in different times and seasons. I think right now it really is like contemplative. It's funny. It's fine. He loves to, he'll get really excited to share with me something he's read by one of the mystics that he's into the time.
The desert sages.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
He gets excited about that. He gets excited about new opportunities. I wouldn't say he's opportunist. No, I would say you're opportunistic. I think that you've grown in that, or he has grown in that there's had to be some refining around it. But he loves a good opportunity, gets really excited, hey, this thing might happen. And then he jumps into gear towards what it might be. He loves to travel. So put him on an airplane, send him to any spot on the globe, and he's going to be pretty happy. He loves to, he's got his own really sweet, unique relationship with each of his kids. And he really leans into each of those in a sweet way.
What drew you to him right away?
Oh gosh, he's Joshua Douglas Avis. I mean, I met him, he was my older sister's friend. And I
Right,
met him when he
right.
was in
And
high
that's
school.
just cool, you know, right
And I was a
away.
middle schooler and he was a high schooler. And my sister had this group of friends that these guys that were all just like these cute high school boys. And I remember my friends would come over like on a Friday or Saturday, and then Harmony's the boys would be there. Like, oh my gosh, Josh and John and Steve are coming over, and he was Josh.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I think also though too, as getting like older and getting to know him, he's just very kind and thoughtful. He really is thoughtful of others, and like I said, and just a learner, which feels which is attractive to me.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, Josh, this is a fitting introduction to you. Is there anything you'd add for context?
No, hers was a little more eloquent, and so I feel like I need to edit mine. But
No, you're fine.
no.
Well, the person that goes second always, gets an
Right.
advantage, right? They have
Right.
time to think. But that's chivalry, It
You're
comes
right.
at a cost. So you told us a little bit here about how y'all started to get to know each other. How did we become a couple?
We dated, I'm going to use air quotes. I just say it loosely because it was high school, and not to
Right.
belittle high school relationships, but there is, yeah,
An effervescence, maybe,
Yeah, yes. And we were like dated on and off. Josh was really cool in high school. And so,
Well, I mean, still, right? Yeah.
he was very much in the popular group. We lived in a smaller community, so
Right.
I think our high school wasn't tiny, but there's like one high school in the town. Our graduating classes were like 350 people, so not maybe 1,200 people at the school. So he was very cool very much in the cool group, and he was older. And I've described myself as the least cool person in the cool group. So I was 2 grades younger, 3 grades younger, 2 grades younger, and little less cool. But all my friends were very cool.
That's your definition.
Sure. And so we dated on and off like a couple months in the summer, but he was also not super kind to me for a while because he was the cool guy. You can jump in here.
No, yeah. And my frontal lobe wasn't fully developed. And so I was impulsive and I had no forethought or understanding of most of the world.
Sure. And we worked together in a summer at a little coffee shop, a cute little lake. And we, that was really fun. So I think that was it. I think that summer working together, it was called Raspberries was the name of the store, the coffee shop. We flirted and lived close by each other, like a mile from each other. And Josh was driving. I wasn't 16 yet. So he would drive me to and from work if we had the same shift. And we kind of blossomed into a little relationship. And then he broke my heart, Trevor, just broke it in a million pieces. And that
it happens.
Heartbreak lasted way too long. I think I was very... I had some.
Her mom wrote me a letter. Her mom wrote me a letter.
So you were 15 at this point, and
at that point he was probably 17. Like a couple years had gone by. We didn't date when I was 13 at all.
Yeah,
I was a sophomore in high school. He was a senior. So however many years, 3 or 4 years had gone by.
Yeah, I was 17.
You were 17 or 18.
So your heart was broken for a period of time. I'd imagine, Josh, were you going off to school at that point? Was the kind of typical,
I was kind of floundering. I did go to a local JC, but I just didn't have a plan, and I don't know what I was doing.
Heather, you said your heart was broken for too long. What do you mean?
I just really never got over him. And again, I was a child, but I always just really loved him. And so he had kind of moved on, he had moved off the mountain, sort of. I mean, you're living in Riverside, but but I still had 2 years of high school left, and I did my thing too. I'm also not one to like wallow, but it was always like, if I saw him, I'd have butterflies in my stomach, and I missed hanging out with him. And then my senior year, I was a cheerleader. At the first football game, there was his little face in the stands. And I don't think I'd seen him in a while. And I was just like, oh my gosh, Josh is here. And he was there to see me, I'm assuming. Because then we went out afterwards and we've been together since then.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was how we reconnected.
Yeah. He showed
Josh,
back
your
up.
intention
I think I came back and I remember thinking, man, if you let this one go, don't let this one go. It's not, it's just not worth it. And I pictured my life as much as a 18-year-old can. I just pictured I could grow old with her. I could do anything with her. This is the long game. And so, however, an 18-year-old crawls back and says, let's try this again. And then we did. And then she said, do you want me to keep going? Do you want me to tell you the next little? So she said, okay, yeah, we can try this, but I'm going to college and I'm not waiting for you. And I was in Southern California and she went up north to a 4-year school. And
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Sonoma State in Northern California.
Nice.
Yeah, I wasn't then, and I'm not now. It's just my personality. I'm not the girl who's gonna just cancel everything for a guy. Like I was.
Right.
Yes, I was like, Josh is back in my life, but I'm going to college. Like I'm gonna go do
you were heartbroken, but you had, developed a sense of like, hey, I'm still going to do the right thing for me. And, we're going to see how this is going to work. Right.
Yeah. And I think also always in my mind, I'm like, I'm 17 years old. I graduated high school at 17. Like at 17, it's just not a great idea to focus your whole life on one person, like center your life around a guy. You're 17 years old. So
yeah. Right. So how did we maintain a relationship?
Yeah, so she went up north, and we both said if this works long distance for a year, then I think it'll work. And
for many, these are famous last words, right? Going off to college, the turkey drop, the whatever it is.
Yeah.
So what did we do to make it work?
I mean, lots of driving up the 5 for me. And then I think I think there was some homesickness too. And so we would write back and forth. There was no cell phones, which is funny. I think I had a pager.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. We had correspondence. I mean, there was a letter in my mailbox every day from Josh.
Wow. I was a hopeless romantic.
He is a hopeless romantic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as time went on, I think we developed, this, it just got deeper and I think more intentional. And then I decided I wanted to go. I told my parents I was going to school up north, but really I really wanted to just be closer with Heather. So I moved up north a year later and went to school, but it was ultimately to be closer. And I don't know. I mean, how much of the story do you want to like?
I mean, Josh,
well, how did at what point did we decide to get married?
Josh proposed to me when I was 19. And
okay. All right.
22, 21.
I was
awesome.
22.
I was 22.
And we got married the next year. And so I was 20, he was 23. We'd been together for so long. It was just kind of like, why would we keep waiting to get married? And we each had a year left of college. So we were married our last year of school. I credit, really only the grace of God. Like there's some divine something that's kept us.
Yeah.
Because if my daughters or son came to me and they're like, we're going to get married at 20. I'm like, there's no way that you're doing that.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So
certainly. I'm sure you're aware of the fact that many couples that get married at that age struggle to stay married and get divorced usually early on. And so we've been lucky, right? To make it work. And what were those for many, right? The early years are the hardest when you're young, you're married, all of a sudden you're dealing with all of these responsibilities together. What was that like for you two?
Well, it's funny you say that early years are hard. It wasn't for us. We had some mentor couples who, I think we could go to and talk, and some of them would say, man, the first year is the hardest. And it just wasn't the case for us. I just had so much fun, like trying to be an adult. And I think there was just a uniqueness to adventure. It was adventure to be married young. It was adventure to get our first apartment and figure out. We grew up together. Like it was like it was a new stage, and then
Right.
I'm really glad that we grew together, and because there's a lot of people who don't grow together, you know,
Right.
and so I think it was this sense of adventure is what I think kept. I think the sort of the creativeness of this new relationship going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I look back on the first few years so fondly. I mean,
Same.
it was just so fun. And even thinking through, like, we were just completely broke and waiting for student loans to come through because we had a year left of school that first year of
Right.
marriage. And being in our apartment with, like, you know, we got, like, our friend gave us this couch. Everything was just piecemeal together.
Grandma bought the bed.
For our wedding gift, Grandma bought our first
Yeah.
mattress. And we were just
Yeah.
in this little tiny, I think it was like 600 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment, and waiting for those checks to come in. And in the meantime, Josh was driving cars, valet parking, and we would take his tips, or he would get food from the restaurants, and we'd stretch that out. And it was so great to figure that out together.
Right.
We were just on the same. We were totally on the same page, on the same team.
Right.
Because we didn't bring a bunch of baggage, not baggage. We didn't have a whole life we'd already established, right? We were kids.
Yeah.
And so we just did it together, and it was really sweet.
And we kind of came of age together, right? You
Exactly.
know, and you know, seeing our growth development and you know, investing like we did, you know, especially when you went off to college, Heather, it seems like it was really paid off for us, right? You know, and you know, you're describing a lot of these things that some couples, you know, find to be extremely stressful in the beginning years as young couples. For y'all, you're rebranding it or branded it at the time as adventurous, right? Exciting, and there's something that seems to be a meaningful part of your relationship, is that, you know, when you run into these these challenges, we see it as something, an adventurous thing to do together, right? You know.
Yeah.
I would say it's accurate. I've never really put it together like that, but that is very accurate. Yeah.
So what came next?
Well, I mean, speaking of adventurous, we were married for a year, and we, towards the end of college, we're like, okay, what is next? What should we do? What should we do? And I knew I wanted to get a teaching credential. Josh wanted to be a graphic designer, but we also knew, like, this is a time in our life where we actually can do whatever we want, and we don't have to rush into these job opportunity, or like working towards a career. And so we moved to Hawaii with one-way plane tickets.
Nice. There you go.
A little tiny apartment. Yeah, furnished apartment. Sight unseen. We landed, gave ourselves we brought our bikes. We shipped our bikes over.
Nice.
Gave ourselves 3 days to just chill in Maui, and then started applying for jobs. And
we both had, I think, 2 jobs in the first week. Turns out there's a plethora of jobs for young, newly graduated, eager,
minimum wage paying jobs.
Yes.
So we each got a couple part-time jobs, and we did that. And we thought it'd be forever. It was 6 months, and we moved back home, and then worked towards those careers. So then I started teaching. Josh started working as a graphic designer in a church setting, and then at a camp, and then.
Yeah, you could say our roots started probably in Southern California, where we grew up, and started to, to put our roots down and develop our career.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when did we discuss or start thinking about, you know, having a family?
We were really young. I was hoping to be done with kids by 30. Like I wanted 3 kids, and I think around 24, I was 24, Josh was 27. We started trying to get pregnant, and thinking it would happen right away. Like I would be having a kid that year, and it didn't. And we started us on a path of infertility for 3 years, trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
Each answered question just led to more mysteries, and we'd figure something out and then hit a wall, figure something out, hit a wall. And it really is still almost like undiagnosed. There's maybe some reasons, but it just
There was
wasn't
no answers that you found
right. No,
throughout
like
that whole
crystal
journey.
clear. Yeah. And so we had been down that path, and it's a really lonely path. And it was really hard. It was really hard and sad. And then we were at a crossroads between adoption or in IVF, in vitro fertilization.
Yeah. Right.
And we just didn't feel, my take was those 3 years had been so invasive for me
Right.
that I didn't know that I had it in me emotionally to go down the path of IVF.
Yeah.
I felt too tender. And
Yeah.
so that, and some other reasons around that, but that was one of the big ones. It's just like, I can't do that. And so we did it.
What was this whole journey of, experiencing, discovering more about infertility like for your relationship? How did it affect you?
I mean, I felt kind of helpless at times because I couldn't, I don't know, I couldn't fix it. I think that was something early on that, that it was, not to be stereotypical, but guys are fixers and they want to fix it. And I couldn't. And so I think I never shared the same grief that she did, but in our own way, just tried to hold it with her when I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt totally supported by Josh, but it also felt like my thing. Because it was my body that was broken, or my body that wasn't working. And so, and he can't go to the doctor's appointments for me. Like it didn't feel like it was a separate journey by any means, but thinking back, I mean, that was a long time ago. Reflecting back on that, it felt like something I did alone at all.
Well, a lot of women describe that lonely feeling. You were using that word earlier too. It is, normal because, like we're saying, just the fact of the matter is that, Josh, you're not able to, do anything, right? There's that helplessness, and Heather, it is an experience you have within your own body yourself. And that's really challenging, right? For anybody.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't by any means put a wedge between us.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
I feel like we're on the same page in the decision making.
Yeah.
Like it was never like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It would just, if anything, I think something that early in our marriage, it bonded us, I think, in a kind of, this is our story. This is what we're doing together.
And we got to that fork in the road with IVF and adoption, and it seemed like we felt really comfortable saying we didn't want to go down the IVF route. And so that turned us onto the road of adoption. What was that like for us?
Yeah, I would say I was ready to adopt before Josh was. Maybe 6 months before Josh was, I was ready to start that process. And would you agree with that? Does that sound familiar to you? I mean, it's been a long time. And it was like, okay, who do we know? Like, who can we talk to? Where can we see ourselves in this kind of a story? And this was 16, 17 years ago. And we didn't know anybody in the adoption space. It wasn't like, I think there was a trend around adoption about 5 years after we adopted. That's another podcast episode. I don't know if that was helpful or healthy for the adoption community, but there was a moment when you could meet lots of people had adopted. We were before that.
Right.
So then it was like a coworker's son kind of a situation. Like, you start asking around, and we met a couple who had adopted these 2 boys from an agency in Los Angeles. And it was like, all right, we can do that. And so we started that process. And we wanted a healthy baby, and we wanted an infant. And 17 years ago, I had an idea of what adoption is that has radically changed. But it was, I would like to get my baby and maybe pictures and letters with a birth mother, but the birth mother was very much not a part of the story. And I was the savior coming in to rescue a baby who needed a mom. Good for me. I think that's a really harmful adoption narrative now. So, but I didn't know. You can't know what you didn't know.
Right. But there was something romantic about that idea at the time, right?
Sure.
That was exciting. And, it seems like that has shifted, obviously, for you over the years.
And I think it's romantic because it's built off of ignorance. I was ignorant. I didn't know what was really, I didn't understand an adoption narrative. I didn't understand the adoption triad of a birth family, adoptive family, adoptee. Like I just was thinking of me. I needed a baby. I needed to grow my family. This is such a sweet, selfless, amazing way to do that. Look at us adopting. And then everyone's feeding that like, wow, you're so great. Wow, you guys are amazing. Oh my gosh. Good for you. So none of that's helpful.
Yeah. And I think the thing I would just add is that our sort of personalities and disposition was in sort of this, we can rescue this child, but it also fixes a problem for us. It fills that hole.
Yeah.
And so, and it's just saying in a different way that Heather's saying, but I just remember thinking, yeah, good for us. And I get a baby.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what changed your narratives around adoption?
I mean, I feel like that's like fast forward quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say this. We went into it with not a lot of research and felt, I mean, obviously a reputable agency and it was, it was set up in a way that they give you babies. But part of it was not getting in too much of the birth family history, but that we didn't know relationships. And so it was like, we were just very guarded. And this is my baby. This is who I'm bringing home. And so I think relationships change everything. And so we got to know people and we got to know families and we got to know birth families and we got to, I think, be open to this new world of adoption and let it change us in a good way, in a healthy way for everyone.
Yeah. We just learned a lot. We learned a ton from people who were in it, from listening to adult adoptees, telling their very real stories, and then listening to birth mothers and letting other people who are a part of the story in the story. You know, it's not just us. And it changed everything for sure.
Yeah. And so we adopted our first child at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can tell that part. Yeah.
Game changer. Yeah. So again, we went with a private agency to get a healthy newborn and we got a little girl who was medically fragile and who had Down syndrome. And so that whole idea or plan kind of was flipped on its head. And we very cautiously stepped into that new space of disability and understanding what it looked like to bring this little girl home who, when they presented, it was like, this is our little girl. And so the medical side kind of overtook the Down syndrome side at first, because we're like new parents, we don't know any different, and we bring her home. And it was a crazy first few years. I mean, the first day that she's home, we took her to meet her cardiologist and a heart surgeon to talk about her heart surgery that she needed. And so we were thrust into this world of medically fragile babies. Yeah. And as hard as it sounds, it's all we knew. And it was so sweet, and it's a cherished time, and it was a sweet time. And there was hard moments, but that was our baby that we were bonding with. And she made it through surgeries and she got stronger and she developed in a different way, but that was our kid. And she was welcomed into our family, like, just with open arms. The whole family.
Yeah. And so, we had, crossed this threshold, become parents, this thing that we've been working for so long. How did that impact or change your relationship?
Well, it's not something that we've really reflected on before, but parenting changes everything. I mean, becoming a parent changes everything, every aspect, every dynamic. because it's not just the two of us anymore. And we brought home a little girl. Like we were adventurers, and we went places, and we traveled a ton, and we, we even in bringing home our daughter Mason, our baby girl, it was like, even that there's an adventure there, and we had to stay put because she was sick and she couldn't travel. Mason couldn't get on an airplane the first almost 3 years of her life.
We
More
felt,
than that.
Yeah, we felt landlocked. And so we made it work. We would get on trains.
Yeah, we took trains.
Or we'd go local.
But it was like we had to, bringing her into our life, required us to give up of something. It wasn't just a stacking on top of. It was we got to trade some things in here for her.
Right.
And that, time just to ourselves. I mean, all of that changes. And then I get to watch Josh be a dad and step into that role, and in such a beautiful way. And, I have friends who have felt frustrated at the way that their partners parent.
Sure.
And so I could have gone that way, but that just wasn't the case for us. And so then you bring in this baby where it's not just like, oh, we need to change diapers and be up late at night and all of that. It's the dynamic of, oh, we're actually fighting to keep her alive. Like she's on oxygen 24/7. You're told not to put a baby in a crib with a blanket, and she's got like rubber cannula. Tubing in her crib. And so then if you're there for us, I think the fighting for her life, literally, it was a joint effort, and it just really brought us together.
And Mason, we waited for Mason for so long that when she made it, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is our kid. And we held on for dear life, and so it was celebratory, but also she just filled a really big hole that we had been waiting for. And
So we made this transition. We kind of, crossed this threshold. And Heather, you said when you were first imagining becoming a mom, you wanted to have 3 kids. Did, as we transitioned to adoption, did that change, or did we just keep going with that vision?
I mean, we have 3 kids. So Macy, if Macy didn't have all her health issues, we probably would have had our next child sooner. But she was pretty all consuming. And once all her medical issues started to resolve, she was around 3.5. And we started the process again to adopt another kid. And then our middle daughter Truly came home. She was 6 months old, a week shy of 6 months. And Macy was 3.5, 4. Macy was 4 when Truly came home. And then we had our girls. And it was, everything got exponentially harder. Just a 4-year-old with medical needs and learning disabilities and cognitive disabilities, and then a 6-month-old who wants to rule the world from 6 months. So it just got more and more. Josh was working full time. I was home full time. So we were kind of playing into those roles a little bit. Sure. And it's just a consuming season.
Totally.
Of life. Having littles.
Yeah. Right. I think a lot of people talk about that time of life, losing a sense of their identity, losing a sense of their relationship, the things that maybe meant most to them. What did we do? It sounds like a big part of what we tried to do is just keep living our life and just kind of say, all right, you're along for the ride too, kids. But what else did we do as a couple to kind of keep our connection alive during that time?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
It is, yeah. I mean, there was a sense of, like bringing the kids into who we were instead of us having completely to change for them.
Right.
There's a give and take in all relationships. But even like once a week, it was really good for us, was hanging out with a group of friends.
That's what I was going to say.
We did like a game night and watched Survivor together. And we did that every week. And then once our kids came, we brought pack and plates to our friend's house and we put them down there. and then
Right.
transferred home. And so things like that, where it's like we could have stayed home, but
Right.
we incorporated our kids into
Yeah.
what was working for us.
Yeah.
I think too, we were part of a church that had a small group that we were kind of actively involved with a lot of different couples of different ages, different stages of life. And I think Heather and I were very sacrificial to each other, almost unhealthily. Like, well, I'll outgive her. She'll outserve me. There was just like
Yeah. Right.
a sense of just outdoing each other. But there was also this understanding of what was healthy and what wasn't, just based off of the proximity of other couples and mentor couples. And so I think that was really good and formative in those years of how are we doing? Oh gosh, so-and-so is going through a divorce. Oh, this is hard. Or watching other dads and yeah, so we had good models, but also I think we just had a good perspective at the time.
Yeah. And we kept a lot of what kind of made us, a good couple, a lot of the things that were really meaningful for us, community, all of that, going, right? And that stability of that seemed like it was very important. I think it is important, right, for couples as they make that transition. So when did we have our third kid?
Our son, August, truly was 3, and Macy was 6.5.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And something like that. And no, maybe a year younger. Anyways, we got a message about a mom who was pregnant and had an in utero diagnosis for Down syndrome and a congenital heart defect. And would we want to know more? And we said yes. And then 2 months later, our son came home. So he was born in 2013. So by 2013, we had 3 kids.
Yeah.
9, 10, 11, 12. I guess we had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a newborn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So your vision from before, Heather, of having 3 children, you had it. It was complete in a way. And
3
that's
was
awesome.
with our middle daughter, truly, it was like, this doesn't feel like the end. And then once August came home, it felt like, oh, this is the period on the sentence. It did. It's always felt that way. I don't think either of us have desired a 4th child. It's just always been. This feels like it was what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at what point did we transition to doing more kind of the advocacy work, starting, you have a foundation that supports families that are going through this process as well, right?
Yeah. I'll just say a little intro. I think part of it was Heather just started capturing our story for ourselves. You remember when blogging was a thing? And so it was a creative outlet for her, but also like a digital memory book. And it was so, it was great. It was like, visual photography and writing and online and all that. And that was just a space that Heather had created. And then microblogging came out in the form of Instagram. And then Instagram kind of took off from there. And just, we had a friend who had an account, was like, I really think you should just post one post of Macy a day and put it out there for the world to see. And that was a space that was like the Wild West, that there wasn't a lot of advocacy in social media, because social media it started. This is about 10, 11 years ago. And it just grew and grew and grew. And that, I think as the platform grew, I think Heather's understanding of the importance of stewarding it well and using that voice in a way that turned into advocacy. And then it just, it just turned into a much bigger thing, and turned into books and podcasts and events. And since the beginning, I made Heather a book for Christmas this last year, just looking at some of the early stuff that she did, and like a memory book, like an actual hard copy, and the message was the same back then. And it was this idea of, wow, these kids who we have who are different are a gift. And what if we looked at them differently? What if we looked at them as an asset and not as a burden, or a gift and as as something that is just so much harder.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah, so I mean, like the logistics of it. I was a full-time stay-at-home mom, and Josh was working full-time, and then I was offered a book deal to write a book, and that really started shifting how we do work because that opened up more opportunities for speaking engagements and travel. And so Josh had a flexible job, but it was just started to become pretty burdensome. We just needed more capacity. We didn't have it.
Yeah.
Something had to give. And so we've had to have those hard conversations too of something's got to give here. And who's it going to be? What's it going to be? Because we can't keep doing all of it. And I think Josh and I both also default to like, let's do it all. I do.
It sounds like we like to take on opportunities.
Yeah, so I'm always like, yeah, let's try it. Let's do that. That's great. We'll figure it out. And Josh, I think, is a little more practical in that too, which is like figure it out along the way.
It took a long time to figure that out, though.
Yeah. And so
what was that like for us? Was that challenging? I mean, that's a difficult thing, this kind of push and pull of who are we going to whose career are we going to prioritize? Whose work are we going to prioritize?
Yeah, it's hard conversation.
Yeah, I would say one thing that has been, I think, consistent in what I think works well for Heather and I is just constantly checking in and talking and saying, what about this? Having those hard conversations. It's usually in the kitchen. And sometimes there's tears and sometimes there's excitement and sometimes there's like anguish and sometimes there's like, well, what is happening right now? What should we do? And so there was just so many pivotal kitchen conversations along the way.
I think I'd say like right around 2018, 19, 18, we both started to really develop our self-awareness. And there were some things that came into our lives and some tools and books and different people and stuff. And it was like, I'd never really thought about this. And realizing how I work individually in a space, realizing how I interact with others. I just really started to think through that before. I hadn't before, really. And that was pretty, I think that was pretty transformative in our relationship, in us being able to know like what's mine to do, what's not mine to do, and being able to ask hard questions of one another. And we're both, we're very similar in how we, like what our core needs are in the world and how we want those needs to be met, which I think served us, but then also created like some codependency that we had to figure out. And
well, that's pretty much the norm, right? For couples that get married at the age y'all got married at, right? You know, like we talked about, one of the benefits is that you develop together, but that can also be a drawback, right? Eventually, when you're like, oh man, who am I as a person separate from this person I've been living with my entire adult life? And it sounds like when we kind of came into some of those ideas and tools to develop more self-awareness, it was challenging, but you know, we moved together in that way. For some people, they develop that self-awareness and they move separately, right?
There's nothing fun about a mirror that in a time that like helps you just develop as a human. And so I mean, honestly, we're still, I would say still in it. I don't think it'll ever go away, but you know, when we started to get even like one of the tools is the Enneagram, which was instrumental for both of us. And it really helped our marriage. And so, but when you figure out what your gift is and your true self versus, you know, your false self, you don't want to let go of that false self because that's what's protected you for so long. And so I hated some of the elements of having this mirror that's like, I don't see what you see. And then it's like, oh no, this awareness is hard and so good.
Would we say that was the most challenging period of our life together so far? Or what would you say is the most challenging moment?
Well, like as a couple or just in life?
As a couple.
Okay. I think I would go back for me when I started staying home full time, I had a career and Josh
Right.
was working. I was
Right.
grateful to stay home. I chose it. No one was forcing me to do it.
Right.
And I was pretty resentful that Josh got to go to work every day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I was exhausted by the mundane of things. And I remember Josh read a book called Choosing to Cheat. Is that
Oh,
what it was?
yeah,
Andy
yeah,
Stanley,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Choose Stanley. And
And
that was, I think there was a moment there for the two of us where
Mm-hmm.
I could have just continued to build up resentment
Right.
and been tired and really just like pushed away.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh could have been like, I'm justified in what I'm doing, and you're being
Mm-hmm.
unreasonable, and this is what we
Mm-hmm.
chose. Josh just read this book, and he's like, I can choose to give up. Like, I can choose to let something go, and it's not going to be my family. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to choose my family over my job.
Yeah.
And not that he gave up his job, but like if it
Right.
meant staying an hour late at work, he didn't have to, versus
Mm-hmm.
coming home to help me and
Yeah.
relieve me. I think there was a
Yeah.
moment where Josh like understood how hard it was
Right.
for me to be home with little kids and with our oldest
Mm-hmm.
having a disability,
Mm-hmm.
that I needed him to know, but I didn't know to say, I need you to know how hard this is.
Mm-hmm.
That season of figuring that out probably was one
Mm-hmm.
of the harder seasons in our relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
And things from that even stuck. Like he started saying, Saturday mornings are yours, whatever you want to do on a Saturday morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I don't remember ever saying that.
really?
I'm just kidding. I don't.
Really? But that's still stuck. Saturday mornings are still mine.
Yeah.
And we've even like had some role swaps almost where Josh is more at home with the kids and doing some with the kids
Right.
than I am. But
Right.
I like it's just a recognition of roles was
Yeah.
really helpful for
Totally.
us.
Yeah.
What do you think for you, Josh? What would you say has been the most challenging moment, if it's not that?
I don't know. I'm I'm pretty adverse to conflict, so I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like suppressing a memory that I
Mm-hmm.
can't find. So I don't know. I think I would say early on, yeah, I didn't know it, but it was awareness. And early in our marriage, there was like things that she would bring up that I would say, I just don't see that. I don't understand
Mm-hmm.
that. And so there was this
Mm-hmm.
idea, what if she's right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what could we consider that you're super critical about this? So it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
seasons. I think it was just like markers along the way.
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
we've both had these markers that we can point to that they're not scars, but they helped. They helped along the
Yeah.
way.
So we have this foundation, the lucky few. Why do we name it that?
When our daughter Macy came home, I had a moment at the park where she was the only person with Down syndrome there, which is usually the case. She's usually the only
Mm-hmm.
person with Down syndrome in a room,
Right.
unless we're at a Down syndrome event. Well, and now she has a brother with Down syndrome, but before that.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling so, like looking around at all the other parents and thinking, or caregivers at the park, and thinking, they don't have a kid with Down syndrome. I have the kid with Down syndrome. Like, I'm so lucky. I'm the only one here who gets a Macy. And I feel so overwhelmed. I felt so lucky. And just
Yeah.
that kind of that theme kept showing up even when it was really hard. I remember being in the hospital
Yeah.
with her when she had open heart surgery. And it was hard and scary, but there was also this sense of like, I can't believe that I get to do this. And it worked out, right? Like
Right.
her heart was healed and she's fine. So it
Yeah.
would be a different story if not, but I can't believe I get to experience this. Like this is, it's not good or bad. It just is what it is, but I feel really lucky and honored to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And then she's just incredible. And that there was this narrative around Down syndrome prior to Macy coming
Right.
into our lives that we had been told, and even knowing we were going to adopt her, it's like, this is bad, this is scary, we're so sorry, oh my gosh, why would you do that? And then realizing like, wait a second, we're so lucky to have her in our life.
Yeah.
And she's shifted everything. She's reframed everything for us in
Yeah.
all the right ways. And so that's where the phrase the lucky few came from.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. And I don't know if it's referencing the Shakespeare speech. Is it?
No,
Meant to
tell me
be?
more. It's
yeah,
the first time I've ever heard.
Henry V, the "We Lucky Few, We Band of Brothers." It's like the famous speech he gives before going into battle.
Wow.
But it's kind of interesting because I think we kind of often will pair love and war, right, or combat or intensity, the kind of the kind of feelings that are evoked, the depth of emotion, right, can be similar, I think, for people. And you're describing how for you, man, there's a lot of challenges, and in that, we're just so blessed and lucky to have this person in our life, right, that we worked so long and hard to make this happen for us, and it's even more meaningful with that. And that's wonderful. So yeah, you should look up there's a famous performance of it, anyways. But yeah, so it's been wonderful to hear more of y'all's story today. It's something I'm curious about, whenever I talk to couples. If you could spend a day at any stage in your marriage, any moment, right, that you were together, where would you spend it?
Oh, that's hard.
Okay, that's so hard.
That's unfair. It's an unfair question.
Well, I'm the question asker. I get
would
freedom to ask unfair questions.
I would go back to the very, very beginning because it was so new and fun.
Yeah.
And we went on a honeymoon in Hawaii, and then we moved to Hawaii.
Right.
But like being and if I get to go back, I will go to Hawaii. That's where we're headed. In any of my go back places.
Yeah.
So that just like I was definitely still a kid and felt like a kid, but I got to be this adult. It was so fun. Like all of it was just that was the first time I had gone on vacation without my family, or without an adult with me.
Yeah.
Like like on an airplane vacation. And I was like, whoa, we're doing this. Oh, this is happening. It's so fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. My answer is very similar. I pictured us in the water in Hawaii as newlyweds. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like it was just magical. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also right now is an amazing time. So I can't
Right.
I know you did. I know you said one place.
I also like
we're in a really sweet spot in our life. Right?
Yeah.
Like the day we brought Macy home, the season of Mason coming home being parents for the first time, I would do that over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, y'all are lucky of the lives that you've lived, right? You've made a choice early on in your life to get married at an age where a lot of folks struggle to stay married, right? I think that there is a sense of making your own luck too, right?
Sure.
And I think that that's something that, is a big part of your marriage and your story. So if you were going to give your story a title, what would it be? I guess you kind of already have. The Lucky Few is kind of like really good branding already.
I know, like it does seem like it's hard to go away from that one.
I mean, the only word that comes to mind or maybe not title. She's the writer, so really, I really should step aside. We just talked a lot about adventure.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah. And this idea of, as you kind of pulled it out of our story, that I didn't realize how much adventure was so apparent since day one.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and especially telling each other, this is an adventure, right? This is so stressful. This is so overwhelming. This is so defeating. This is an adventure, right? And that's what got you here, and will keep you going, I'm sure.
That's right. Adventure on, we'll call it that.
Okay, nice. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk with you all today, and best wishes here for the trails ahead.
Yeah.
Thanks, Trevor.
Adventure on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where goes the time?
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Marriage Stories. As always, I am your host, Trevor White. Production of this episode was done by Gabe Martinez. Music provided by OK Carroll. Our website, where you can find all of our episodes and sign up to receive new episodes direct to your inbox, is launchtoland.com. Once again, that's launchtoland.com. Feel free to follow along on all of our social media channels at Launch to Land, as well as our YouTube channel. Starting your own marriage story? Head over to launchtoland.com and check out our premarital counseling video series with host and licensed marriage and family therapist Trevor White. This comprehensive series will prepare you to take off in the marriage you want. Listeners can use a special promo code PROLOGUE to get 15% off your first purchase. Once again, that is promo code PROLOGUE to get 15% off your first purchase. Enjoying marriage stories? Please subscribe, like, share, tell a friend, and leave a 5-star review. And as always, be sure to join us next week as we take another marriage story off the shelf.